What do you get when you mix equal parts sugar, spice, Americana, Twin Peaks, trip hop, and a little bit, just a dash of Tanya from White Lotus energy? It's Lana Del Rey. Welcome to Not Every Single. I'm Joe.
And I'm Stephanie.
So this is an artist we haven't talked about before.
Right.
I'm not very familiar with their catalog, so we decided to go all the way pretty much to the beginning. We'll get into that later. Pretty much at the beginning. Born to Die, Lana's 2012 big hit record.
Yeah, huge. Came out and everyone just sort of said, oh, here's a new... It was very fresh at the time. There wasn't anything like that going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I didn't hear much about it at the time, so it's been really interesting today to go and read about the controversies and people's opinions and stuff, and the SNL performance. We'll get into all that. But I just took this album in for the first time today. Well, yesterday. But we're filming today. Yeah. And you know, I started taking track by track notes.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite cover all of it. Some of them I didn't have notes on, but we'll just start right at the beginning.
Sure.
So title track, Born to Die, starts with these string swells, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I've heard video games, so I kind of know what's coming here.
Right.
And then all of a sudden this like minimal drum machine beat from like Pure Heroin, which was a year after, I believe.
Yeah.
Making smart with the words again. Well,
And I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was an element.
Yeah, the funny thing was we actually did a video on her new single, A&W, and then realized we didn't really know. I had listened to Born to Die a couple of times, but never like on headphones and never like really taking it in. So this was definitely a new experience for me too, really like giving it my full attention.
Yeah, that's a good point. We actually scrapped our video about A&W because we realized, well, we don't really know what we're talking about here. Like, we can talk about the song, but it's missing the context. And I think we'll go back through leading up to her new album.
Yeah, we don't always do that because part of the point of our channel is you don't have to know everything or know all the context to like enjoy or not enjoy or talk about music. But here it just was something we both thought would be cool to do, especially with such a fan base that she has.
Yeah, I was intrigued enough that I felt like we should stop and go back. So, you know, back into this title track, Born to Die, I'm thinking like, this is incredibly cinematic.
Yeah.
And that kept popping up. It feels like every song from this album is like from a movie.
Yeah, I think the album artwork contributes a lot to this. But these songs, you listen to them and you get a feeling from, not every song is exactly the same, clearly.
Yeah.
But there's themes that go throughout it, and you really get a feel for like what she is trying to convey as an artist, a really fully realized persona that you don't often get, especially with early efforts like this.
Yeah, it kind of comes right out of the gate, figured out.
Right.
And you know, we'll get into how this is not actually her debut album and all that stuff. But let's keep going in the track list for now, because Off to the Races, you already get a different vocal delivery in the chorus, which I was very happy to hear, because hearing video games, and I had like maybe heard Blue Jeans, or I just knew there was a song called Blue Jeans.
Right.
I thought, okay, that's what we're going to get as far as vocals.
Yeah, you get some artists, not that it's necessarily a bad thing, but you get some artists that sort of rest on their like, oh, this is how I sing. Like, I think a lot about, I don't listen to Adele much, but I do think a lot about like when I hear Adele, there's certain types of ways that she sings. She has a wide range. She's not sticking to one area, but I think like, yeah, I know what she sounds like.
Right.
And then, I listen to something like this and I'm going like, there's at least 4 to 5 different types of vocal delivery that she gives, and she often switches between it so quickly. which I find really fun in a song to get like, she's got this like sultry thing. She's got this dark, deep thing. And then she's got, I'd say, baby voice.
Yeah.
And pouty voice.
There's a little bit of like Britney baby voice pops in here and there.
And it's really cool because it's showing these two sides. I think it comes through in her songs too, these two sides of like a modern woman artist where you have this sort of performative feminine aspect and you have this sort of, more like there's sexuality in both aspects of this. And she's sort of playing off that Americana aspect of like, you've got Betty Boop and you've got like, I don't know, Betty Davis or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. It's almost like psychosexual.
Right.
There's like a menace behind it.
Right.
And that album cover, it's so perfect. If you watch this channel, you know that we love when the album cover really represents what you're about to hear. And boy, does it on this one. It encompasses everything that's heard on this record. And yeah, that sexuality is always sort of under this veil of like creepiness almost.
Yeah, there's, like I said, there's like there's this sultry deep voice she does, and then there's the darker voice, which to me really brings in Fiona Apple influence. I'm not sure if that's who she's referencing, but that deep and like dark and sort of like a little bit of anger or like rebellion against like what the world wants a woman to be.
Yeah.
I think there's a song, well, I'm going to skip ahead just a tiny bit for a second, but $1 Million Man to me almost sounds like a song that could be off When the Pawn by Fiona Apple.
Oh, okay. Sure.
It's got not fully front to back, but it's got elements of it that make it a correlation to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really glad that you get a different vocal so quickly in the album because you're kind of reassured. Like, no, there's going to be some variety here, despite what you might think from like the lead single and the title track. You're reassured pretty quick that there's other stuff going on. And also in the second song, Off to the Races, you get the vocal chop samples going on, which is ever present here in this album. It's interesting because, I think that's kind of come and gone throughout music ever since sampling and stuff. And obviously starting in the hip hop world and bleeding into this kind of stuff where you get these vocal chop samples that are used in a way that we heard even last year in Renaissance.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Now that was more coming from that like dance rave scene, but it's the same tool.
Right.
It's implemented the same way. It's just in a different genre. I think that it really adds a cool element here.
Yeah.
Because with all this realness, the vocals are very often pretty unaffected. They're raw, they're real, they're human. Big string swells feel organic and natural. So to have like, then it's got this like drum machine trip hop thing and these like weird vocal samples.
Right.
Perfect blend.
I mean, as musicians ourselves and in the music we listen to, I think we're often drawn to that sort of juxtaposition of real with like, not fake, just with like electronic. And it's used, it's used really well here.
And there's also something to be said, if it's a drum machine, it is on the grid. 1, 2, 3. Everything is very quantized, and so to counterbalance that with Lana's voice, that's often like very gliding from one part to the other, never ever staccato really.
Yeah.
And same with the strings. So now you got two main elements that are sort of gliding you organically through the parts, and then the drum machine keeping you on the beat. Yeah,
I mean, this brings me to a point that something that I noticed the first time I listened to it twice within the past couple of weeks. And the first time I listened to it with earbuds, not even like amazing headphones, just like cheap earbuds, and the way that I was focused on her vocal delivery. And it's the way that you pointed out, there's a realness and a rawness to her voice where again, something that Fiona Apple does also sometimes, which is this like, yeah, she's kind of going up and down in her voice, and it almost feels like it's about to go off the rails, like often.
Yeah.
It almost
Yeah.
feels like she's going to hit the wrong note because she's just being a little more fluid with it. But there's still a sense of control, which you really get when she switches between her registers and, you know, from her like full voice to her head voice and stuff. Like, and when she does just very specific kind of vocal delivery, it's like, well, she's thinking about every single thing. She's not just like going in there and like, whoa, you know,
Right.
It's everything's calculated, but it does feel very natural as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't feel show offy like when people are doing like drawing in the sky, like, oh, you know, it's like, there's a controlled nature to it. Now, I did read that a lot of the production was kind of added last minute.
Okay.
And she was saying, you know, it was added last minute, a lot of that stuff, those other elements. So these songs that were ballads suddenly weren't ballads. Now, I don't really know the tone of that quote, if she was saying it like, this is a good thing. Like, how about that? How that worked out? Or if it was kind of critiquing her past work in that way. But I have to say, great decision, because if we were talking about 12 songs that sounded like video games, I'd be a little bored.
Yeah, I think same with me. I think that the production really adds to it. I think oftentimes, you know, there are songwriters and artists like this who just go do the thing of like, yeah, it's ballads. Like I can sing ballads so beautifully, and I have this like great, deep, interesting, unique voice. So like everyone's just going to want to listen to me sing, like with, you know, strings and piano in the background or whatever.
It gets old. You have to capture the listener's attention with these other elements, and this album does it perfectly. We get into Blue Jeans, and you hear that Americana guitar for the first time. Makes me think of a diner, Twin Peaks, you know, this sort of stuff. The song that's maybe playing at that like dingy bar in True Detective season 2, you know?
Yeah.
I love that. And then we go right into video games. Now, here is where I understand some of the criticism that I was reading about of it being like melodramatic.
Right.
But here's the thing. We've talked a lot on this channel, particularly in our video about My Chemical Romance and Danger Days and some other videos as well, that we have a lot of respect for artists who just go all in on a concept and don't really, you know, half-ass it and compromise it in that way.
Yeah.
This is what this album is. And some of them might sound a little melodramatic, and I did get that from video games, but I'd much rather she just go all in on this fully realized vision of this album like she did.
Yeah, the couple of times I've listened to this album recently, I felt like it was a whole experience beginning to end. Like it, like you said, cinematic in the beginning. It's almost like a cinematic experience.
Yeah.
And it really draws you in and brings you through the whole thing. I feel like it's really improved by listening to the album as a whole. And I think the songs also stand out individually. So I'm definitely in favor of what she's done here.
Yeah, I agree. It's important to go all in. If you really, you know, if you believe in yourself as an artist, it's important to do so. And I think it really paid off here. Then we get to Diet Mountain Dew. And my neck still hurts from the whiplash.
Yeah.
This is a weird one. I wasn't sure how I felt like it. Wasn't sure how I felt about it at first. But it's got this LA R&B hip hop vibe coming into it.
Okay.
And this sort of like chatty, almost bratty element that we haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
I was intrigued.
Yeah. It's one of those weird, like shouldn't work, but it does kind of things. And even lyrically, like what?
Like, it's like if I had to pick a least favorite on the album, it would be this song. But I like that it's on there.
Yeah.
You're showing me even more variety and going outside the box, it's also a wild choice to put it right next to like the 1-2 punch of blue jeans in video games. And then all of a sudden, Diet Mountain Dew. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so National Anthem, unfortunately, is not a cover of the Kid A song by Radiohead.
Also a very amazing song.
Yeah. Now I was hoping to hear that, but instead we got a song that I think I take the most issue with lyrically.
Right.
Mainly, money is the reason we exist. It sounds a little, I don't know. What would you say?
You're trying to say that it comes off as a little trite.
A little bit.
I have a different take on this song, which is that I feel the lyrics are done with a wink. And
okay.
I accept it in that way. I can see why people, I mean, I get, you know me, I get like all like, I don't like when lyrics are lazy or
I do know that.
Yeah, and I talk about it a lot, or when sometimes if they feel too juvenile, I can't connect.
Sure.
And I don't know, for some reason it kind of works for me on this song. It just feels like it's on purpose.
You know, I'm inclined to believe you there because, you know, I think she was in her mid-20s, maybe even older when she was writing this. Okay. So I do think there's something behind that there. It's probably not what I thought when I heard it, which is like, money's the reason we exist. Come on. Like, are you 14 writing a song? Come on. Yeah. And then, you know, I don't have that many notes on the back half. Like, I thought, is it Carmen? Mm-hmm. Carmen. I love that like driving production in the chorus. That was something new too. Also perfectly placed where like just as you may be getting bored as a listener, here's a new thing as well.
Yeah, very different. Yeah.
And then Summertime Sadness, which is actually her like top song on Spotify.
Okay.
And you know, it's like repeating that melody. It's got like these big kicks and snares that I like. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like the biggest that percussion got, which is cool that it's kind of towards the end.
Yeah.
And that big wall of swells. Great song.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you said, she's like going all in on this. I guess this can lead us to a little bit of a discussion about her like artist persona and the perception of that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into that real quick. I know we're at the 20-minute mark, but we gotta discuss this real fast. So I didn't know about this, but reading on the whole, you know, this was a fake persona for marketing controversy thing. Ridiculous. This is a well-worn thing people love to say, especially about women. Yeah. But like just about anybody who isn't like in some way, their perceived way, like real as an artist. And yet like there's been plenty of artists who have personas that have been praised for those personas. So it's like, it's very like, I forget what the phrase I'm looking for, but you know, it just doesn't make any sense when people argue this. You know, the SNL sketch that aired shortly after she appeared on the show really says it better than we could. So let's cut to the clip right now.
To some critics, they pointed out that you attempted a singing career a few years ago under your real name, Lizzie Grant, and I guess they thought your new name, Lana Del Rey, seemed like a marketing gimmick.
Yes, and they're absolutely right. No serious musician would ever change their name, except maybe for Sting, Cher, Elton John, Lady Gaga, Jay-Z, everyone else in hip-hop, and of course, Bob Dylan.
Exactly. It's like, you know what? Here, let me tell you a story about a group of young hack frauds that started their band as On a Friday, attempted a musical career as On a Friday, and then they changed their name to a different name. What a bunch of fakes. Radiohead.
Yeah. I mean, I always think about White Stripes, you know, the whole fake, like, we're siblings thing, and the, like, oh, we only wear red and white. And not everybody loved them, but most people were like, it's brilliant, you know, especially, like, dudes who loved The Rock. Like, oh, it's so cool.
And the whole, like, we're siblings thing.
Yeah. I said that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like this mystery, and he's, you know, he's, like, marketing it. And then, you know, Lana Del Rey comes along, formerly Lizzie Grant.
Right.
And she had an album before that. You looked into this.
She had a debut album. It was under Lana Del Rey, spelled a little differently.
Okay.
But she kind of quickly like got out of that record contract and pulled it like right as it was coming out.
Okay.
And then like kind of considers this her proper debut.
And like, imagine if this album was by Lizzie Grant.
It doesn't make sense.
It does. It's just silly. And like, yeah, maybe she didn't like look exactly like that before, but we change like all the time. We change our styles. We change the things we like, the things we're into.
You know, we've praised bands and artists on this channel for embodying different personas based on the era.
Right.
I mean, that's a big thing with Madonna. Also, going into the hip hop world, you have rappers with different characters and stuff. Just look at like Eminem and Slim Shady. Like, hey, what? Neither of those are your real name. What a fake.
Yeah, and
what
like
a fraud.
Gorillas, in the beginning. Yeah.
They're not even.
They're cartoons.
They're cartoons. So like, this is such an absurd criticism that I'm like baffled by. I know it was a decade ago, still baffling.
Yeah.
Erroneous on both counts.
And you're right. It's because she's a woman. It's like, oh no, it's Taylor Swift has to be called Taylor Swift. That's her name. Britney Spears is Britney Spears. It's like, what if someone were to come along today and be like, St. Vincent, she's putting on this fake persona, blah, blah, blah. Her name's Annie Clark, and trying to tear her down that way.
She's also kind of the queen of eras. Let's look at Mass Seduction versus self-titled versus Daddy's Home,
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's the Bowie thing, right? It's changing. At one point, Bowie was an alien that literally came to Earth from outer space in an era.
Yeah.
This is an absurd criticism. And we'll move on to one thing I do want to cover real quick.
Okay.
The infamous SNL performance. Yeah, I wouldn't call it great. We watched it today. She clearly kind of can't get a handle on the song.
She's nervous, and also she's wearing a dress that she can't move. It was a bad choice of wardrobe. She's very okay, this dress, I can't even take a step in it. So that's why she does kind of the weird. I mean, I get it. It's an intimidating stage, but nobody really sounds good on SNL.
A lot of people sound good on SNL, but I'd say that on more than one occasion, there's been some rough performances. So to single her out like that, I think was pretty, to single her out to the point where the show had to address it a few weeks later, that's a little much.
Yeah, come on.
And clearly it didn't affect her career. I'm excited to check out what's next. I know the next one is called Ultraviolence. That sounds pretty intriguing to me. So here's my question to you. Should we keep going in chronological order up until her new album? Or should we jump around to something we haven't heard that's like Norman Rockwell or something?
Right. Well, I've heard that one, but only once.
Okay. Yeah. Do we keep going with the Lana videos? Let us know what you think. And tell us your favorite song on this one, because I'm definitely going to listen to it again soon. Thanks for watching. This is Not Every Single. I'm Joe.
And I'm Stephanie.
Bye.